Welcome to Necof Podcast, where we explore the world's most fascinating stories. Get ready for captivating tales and incredible journeys that inspire and amaze you. Let's get started. Today we're diving deep into the life and legacy of Patrice Lumumba.
A figure who went from postal worker to the first prime minister, Democratic Republic of Congo. His story is anything but straightforward.
Yeah.
We're using excerpts from his Wikipedia biography, all in the original French,
Wow.
to really understand his journey and the political landscape of the time.
Right, because it's not just a biography. It's a deep dive into Congolese independence, Cold War tensions, and a legacy that continues to spark debate today. So to really understand Lumumba's impact, we need to start at the beginning. Born in 1925 in the Belgian Congo, he essentially had to educate himself right.
That's a key point. Educational opportunities for the Congolese under Belgian rule were incredibly limited.
Yeah.
But Lumumba wasn't deterred. He was a voracious reader, a self-taught intellectual who sought knowledge wherever he could find it.
I'm picturing libraries, late nights, this intense desire to learn. It makes you wonder, did this drive for knowledge lay the groundwork for his political aspirations?
It's certainly possible, and it's interesting to look at his early career path.
Yeah.
A clerk for a mining company, then a postal worker, and later a journalist.
Oh, wow.
Each role provided a unique perspective on colonial society,
Right?
its inequalities and the power dynamics at play.
It's almost like he was piecing together a puzzle, understanding the system from within before ultimately challenging it.
Exactly. And this understanding is evident in his writing.
Oh, interesting.
He penned a book titled Le Congo, Terre d'avenir, est-il menacé? In it, he argues that the Congo, a land brimming with potential, was indeed under threat from exploitation and colonial control.
So he's clearly not just blindly accepting the status quo.
Right.
Even in these early writings, there's a sense of questioning, a critique of the colonial system. But he wasn't calling for immediate independence at this point, was he?
Not initially. Early on, Lumumba advocated for reforms within the existing system. He believed in gradual progress, working within the established structures to achieve greater autonomy for the Congolese people.
But something shifted. What propelled him toward a more radical stance, demanding full independence?
There were a few key turning points. One pivotal moment was the 1958 Brussels World's Fair.
Yeah.
The Congo was showcased there, but the portrayal was, let's say, less than flattering.
I've seen some photos from that fair.
I
Very
think-
colonial, very, look what we've done for these people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The exhibition reinforced this paternalistic image of the Congolese as incapable of self-governance. This was a slap in the face for Lumumba.
Yeah.
He saw through the charade and recognized the deep-seated racism and exploitation at the heart of Belgian colonialism.
It must have been a real wake-up call.
It was. The World's Fair experience pushed Lumumba towards a more radical stance.
Yeah.
He returned to the Congo disillusioned with the idea of working within the colonial system and convinced that true liberation could only come through complete independence.
So how did he translate this newfound conviction into action? What were his next steps?
He channeled his energy into forming the Mouvement National Congolais, or MNC.
Correct.
This party became the platform for his vision of an independent Congo, free from Belgian control.
Okay, so he's building a political movement. But how did he connect with a broader audience? We have to remember that this is 1958, pre-internet, pre-social media.
Radio was his primary tool.
Oh, okay.
Lumumba understood the power of communication.
Right.
He utilized radio broadcasts to reach a wider audience, disseminating his message of independence, unity, and self-determination.
Right.
His eloquence and charisma resonated with the Congolese people who were eager to break free from colonial rule.
Imagine the power of his voice coming through those radio waves.
Yeah.
Igniting hope and a sense of possibility.
Absolutely.
It's no wonder he quickly became a symbol of the independence movement.
Absolutely. And his participation in the All-African People's Conference in Accra that same year was another key moment.
Okay.
He met other prominent Pan-African leaders like Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana.
Oh, wow.
This exposure to these figures and their ideas further solidified his belief in a united Africa free from colonial influence.
So we see him transitioning from advocating for gradual reform within the system to aligning himself with revolutionary figures calling for immediate independence.
Precisely. And the Belgian authorities were not happy about this radicalized Lumumba.
Right.
They viewed him as a threat, someone capable of mobilizing the masses and disrupting their control over the Congo's vast resources.
So what did they do?
They cracked down on the independence movement. banning gatherings, arresting leaders, and attempting to silence dissent. In 1959, Lumumba himself was imprisoned for his outspoken criticism of the Belgian government and his calls for independence.
But imprisonment didn't silence him, did it?
No.
This is where we see his influence truly taking hold.
Right. The Belgian government tried to organize a conference, a table ron or roundtable discussion with Congolese leaders to discuss the future of the country, but there was a catch.
A catch. I bet it involved Lumumba.
You bet it did. The Congolese delegates refused to participate without their chosen leader. They saw Lumumba as their voice, their representative, and they wouldn't be silenced.
It's amazing to see that even from prison, Lumumba held this much sway over the independence movement.
It speaks to his charisma and the power of his message.
Right.
The Belgians, facing mounting pressure and realizing they couldn't proceed without Lumumba, were forced to release him from prison and bring him to Brussels for the talks.
Talk about a power move. From political prisoner to key negotiator, all because the people demanded his presence.
Indeed. And what happened next would shock everyone, including the Congolese delegation. The Belgians, perhaps underestimating the Congolese resolve or hoping to exploit divisions within the delegation, found themselves facing a united front demanding immediate independence, and to everyone's astonishment, they agreed.
Wait, they just gave in, granted independence just like that.
It seems they were caught completely off guard by the level of unity and determination among the Congolese leaders. They agreed to grant independence on June 30th, 1960, a date that surprised even the most optimistic members of the Congolese delegation.
So in the span of just a few months, Lumumba went from political prisoner to a key figure negotiating his nation's independence. What a whirlwind. What happened next?
On June 30th, 1960, the official independence ceremony took place in Leopoldville. King Baudouin of Belgium was there, along with international dignitaries, to witness this historic moment.
I can only imagine the anticipation, the excitement in the air, decades of struggle culminating in this one event.
And Lumumba, now the newly elected prime minister, seized the moment he delivered a speech that would forever be etched in history, a speech that would challenge the very foundations of colonial rule.
This is the speech where he directly confronts Belgian colonialism, right?
He doesn't just confront it, he dismantles it piece by piece in front of the entire world. Remember, this is a time when many African nations were still under colonial rule. Lumumba's words were a beacon of hope, a powerful articulation of the right to self-determination.
I can only imagine the tension in the room as he spoke.
King Baudouin had prepared a paternalistic speech praising Belgium's supposed contributions to the Congo. Lumumba, on the other hand, spoke directly to the Congolese people, recounting the injustices of colonial rule, the forced labor, the discrimination, the brutal violence inflicted upon them.
It must have been a bold and electrifying moment.
It was that speech solidified his image as a revolutionary leader, someone unafraid to speak truth to power. However, this bold stance also set the stage for the challenges that would soon engulf the newly independent nation.
Because independence wasn't a magical solution, it brought with it a whole new set of problems, didn't it?
It did, and Lumumba's vision of a unified independent Congo faced almost immediate opposition.
Let's talk about Katanga. That was a major flashpoint, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Katanga was a mineral-rich province in the south, and shortly after independence, it declared secession under the leadership of Moise Tshombe.
And it wasn't just a random internal conflict. There were powerful external forces at play, weren't there?
You're right. The Belgians had a vested interest in Katanga's resources. They saw Lumumba's nationalistic rhetoric as a threat to their economic interests, and they weren't willing to let go of such a valuable asset without a fight. So they backed Tshombe's secessionist movement, providing him with military and financial support.
So you have this newly independent nation facing a rebellion fueled by its former colonizer. It must have been a truly daunting situation.
It was a complex and dangerous situation. Lumumba, believing in the principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity, appealed to the United Nations for assistance in quelling the rebellion and restoring order.
He must have hoped for a strong response from the international community.
He did. He expected the UN to uphold the principles of Congolese independence and help him maintain the country's unity, but the UN's response was hesitant, and their actions, or lack thereof, had devastating consequences.
What do you mean? Didn't they send peacekeepers?
They did, but their mandate was extremely limited. They were forbidden from engaging in any actions that would benefit either side in the conflict, essentially. They were there to observe, not to intervene.
So they stood by while Katanga slipped away.
To a large extent, yes. Lumumba saw this as a betrayal, a sign that the West, particularly Belgium and the United States, was more interested in maintaining its influence in the region than in supporting a truly independent Congo. Out of frustration and facing immense pressure, he made a controversial decision that would seal his fate. He turned to the Soviet Union for help.
This is where the Cold War context becomes really crucial, right?
Exactly. Lumumba's request for Soviet aid sent shockwaves through Western governments. It confirmed their worst fears in the eyes of the United States. At the height of Cold War paranoia, this was proof that Lumumba was a communist puppet, a dangerous figure who could potentially shift the balance of power in Africa.
And the United States wasn't about to let that happen.
The CIA, already involved in covert operations in the Congo, ramped up their efforts to undermine Lumumba's government within months. He was removed from office by President Kasavubu, a move orchestrated with the support of Western intelligence agencies.
So the leader who fought so passionately for independence was ousted from power just a few months later. It's a tragic turn of events what happened to Lumumba after his removal.
He didn't go down without a fight. He contested his removal, leading to a political crisis and a power struggle within the government. However, his fate was ultimately sealed by another key player in this drama, Joseph Désiré Mobutu.
Mobutu, the military leader who would later rule Zaire, as he renamed the country, for decades.
Yes, Mobutu, with the backing of the CIA, staged a coup d'etat, effectively taking control of the Congo. Lumumba was placed under house arrest, a move that further destabilized the already fragile nation.
But he didn't stay under house arrest for long, did he?
No, he didn't. In a daring escape attempt, Lumumba, along with his family, managed to flee house arrest in November 1960. They were headed towards Stanleyville, hoping to rally support and regain control.
It sounds like something out of a movie. Did he make it?
Sadly, no, his escape was short-lived. He was recaptured in December and transferred to Katanga, the very province that had seceded under Shambe. And that's where the story takes a very dark turn.
I can only imagine being handed over to your enemies rarely ends well.
You're right. Lumumba, along with two of his close associates, was brutally executed on January 17, 1961, under the orders of the Katangan authorities. The involvement of Belgian officials in this execution has been a point of contention and investigation for decades.
What was the official explanation for his death?
The official story claimed that he was killed by villagers during an escape attempt. But this narrative quickly unraveled. Later investigations and eyewitness accounts revealed that he was tortured and executed under the direct supervision of Katangan and Belgian officials.
It's a chilling reminder of the brutality and ruthlessness of political power struggles.
Lumumba's death was a tragedy, not just for the Congo, but for the entire African continent. He represented a new generation of African leaders determined to chart their own course, free from colonial influence. His assassination sent shockwaves through the world, highlighting the brutal realities of Cold War politics and the lengths to which Western powers would go to maintain their grip on power.
His death marked the end of his life, but certainly not the end of his story. His legacy continues to be debated and reinterpreted to this day.
Yes, it does, and the quest for truth and justice regarding his assassination continues to this day.
It's incredible to think about the sheer volume of inquiries and investigations surrounding Lumumba's death. It speaks to the lasting impact of this event, the refusal to let this story be swept under the rug.
It's a testament to the power of his legacy and the unwavering pursuit of justice by his family and supporters. These investigations haven't just uncovered information, they've forced nations to confront their roles in this tragedy.
Let's start with Belgium. Their involvement seems undeniable at this point.
That's right. A Belgian parliamentary inquiry in 2001 concluded that Belgium bore moral responsibility for Lumumba's death. It was a significant admission, acknowledging that Belgian officials were deeply involved in the events leading up to his execution.
So not just a passive role, but active involvement in his demise.
The inquiry uncovered evidence that Belgian officials actively sought to undermine Lumumba's government. They supported the Katangan secession, provided logistical support for his transfer to Katanga, and even had agents present at the location where he was murdered.
It's a far cry from the narrative of Belgium as a benevolent colonizer.
Indeed, and then there's the role of the United States. We know the CIA was involved in covert operations in the Congo during this period, but to what extent were they involved in Lumumba's assassination?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? What do we actually know about the CIA's role?
Declassified CIA documents reveal a shocking truth. There was a plot to assassinate Lumumba, orchestrated at the highest levels of the U.S. government. The plan involved poisoning him, although it seems it was never carried out.
A plot to assassinate a democratically elected leader, it's hard to fathom such a blatant disregard for sovereignty.
Even if the plot wasn't directly executed, it highlights the lengths to which the United States was willing to go to remove Lumumba from power. They saw him as a threat to their Cold War interests, a potential communist ally in a strategically vital region.
It seems clear that Lumumba's death was a result of a complex web of political machinations involving powerful actors both within and outside the Congo.
It's a stark illustration of how Cold War tensions played out on the African continent with devastating consequences.
But despite these revelations, there are still gaps in our understanding. What's the latest on these ongoing investigations? What are people still trying to uncover?
Lumumba's family has been tireless in their pursuit of justice. They filed lawsuits, pushed for further investigations, and demanded the return of his remains, which were believed to have been dissolved in acid after his execution.
It's a horrifying thought, attempting to erase even the physical evidence of his existence.
It speaks volumes about the brutality and callousness of those involved in his death. But there was a remarkable development a few years ago. A Belgian police commissioner who had been involved in the disposal of Lumumba's body, confessed to keeping a tooth as a souvenir.
A tooth. It's both bizarre and macabre.
It is, but this single tooth became a focal point in the quest for truth. It was seized by Belgian authorities, and after years of legal battles, it was finally returned to Lumumba's family in 2022.
So even in death, a piece of Lumumba returned home. It's a powerful symbol, isn't it?
It was a symbolic victory, a small measure of justice, and a recognition of the wrongs committed. It also fueled scientific investigations that could potentially shed more light on the circumstances of his death.
This deep dive into Lumumba's life has been incredibly revealing. We've explored his journey from postal worker to prime minister, his passionate fight for independence, the complexities of Cold War politics, and the tragic circumstances of his assassination.
His story is a reminder of the enduring power of ideas, the complexities of post-colonial struggles, and the long shadow that Cold War politics continues to cast on the world.
It makes you think about the impact a single individual can have, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles.
Lumumba's legacy continues to resonate, not just in the Congo, but across Africa and beyond. He's remembered as a martyr for African liberation, a symbol of resistance against colonialism and neocolonialism. His story continues to inspire conversations about justice, accountability, and the pursuit of true self-determination.
It's been a privilege to delve into his story. His life was cut tragically short, but his vision for a free and independent Congo continues to inspire.
He remains a powerful symbol of hope and resistance, and his story serves as a reminder that the fight for justice and equality is never truly over.
Thank you for listening to Necof Podcast. The stories continue on Necof Radio. Join us again for more. Take care and see you soon.